Hey there and welcome to the Hidden Chest, where I talk about overlooked, underrated, or underappreciated games you might not have tried. And I'm here to ask, who doesn't love puppets? Whether it's the gut-busting humor of the Muppets, the delight of learning with Sesame Street, or the magic of going to the land of make-believe in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, there's no art form quite like it.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
Of course, not all puppets can break into pop culture stardom. Back in 1994, Sega threw their own hat into the ring with Dynamite Headdy for the Sega Genesis. How did it go? Okay, so Headdy may have been forgotten by the whole of the human race, but was it warranted? Yeah, no. Remember my whole shtick? I have the intro and everything, come on. As far as 2D platformers go, Dynamite Headdy holds up with the best of them. The movement is fluid, and bopping enemies is loads of fun. Sure, attacking diagonally can be a bit finicky because, you know, D-pad. But you get used to it. Now, mechanically speaking, the focal point of this game is, fittingly, Dynamite Headdy's, head. You use it to attack enemies and grapple onto things, but out of all the mechanics, I think the power-up system has to be the craziest. Though it functions a bit differently from your Sonics and your Marios. You see, you get them from this guy, Headcase. Get it? Because he has a case full of heads? Ha! Well, bop his case when it shows which head you want, and bam, you get that power up until time runs out or you cancel it. The heads you get are absolutely nuts. There's a hammer head, triple head, multi-laser head, a wall climbing head, an inexplicable pig head that shoots figure 8 bullets that home into enemies, and this head, which sucks. The rarest head you can find is the which takes you to a bonus basketball game. There isn't a time limit, but if you take too much damage or destroy both of the machines by getting into the wrong hoop, it's game over. If you win though, you get a randomly generated number. You might want to write them down for later. But hey, speaking of writing, how's that story? Well, it all starts in a world of puppets, where everyone is happy and peaceful. When suddenly, bad guys attack. Now it's up to Dynamite Headdy to save the day. Wait a second, I recognize that writing style. William Shakespeare! One way that this game really excels is in its presentation, and that's because the whole game is a presentation. Levels are called scenes, and they begin with a rising curtain. Everything is designed like a prop, and you even end up backstage in a few instances. Heck, sometimes the set is being built around you while you're playing. Not only is the game beautiful, but there are tons of little details scattered around every level. It's honestly really impressive, and it's technically impressive too. You'll notice many levels take advantage of pseudo 3D effects for all sorts of interesting scenarios. It's all very clever. The music, on the other hand, is good. Not all the songs are winners, but the ones that are, that's the stuff. That's the kind of music I like to hear when participating in an absurdist Raggedy Ann fever dream. Puppets in the Hood? What is this? Leprechaun 5? Or 6? I think this cat guy really sums up the game's atmosphere. He's your rival throughout the adventure, and the first time you run into him, he knocks the entire set down on top of you. Then he jumps into the foreground and begins charging what looks like some sort of ultimate attack, but then all he does is ineffectually ram his face against the wall. What a chump. Also, Japan. Then the next time you see him, his decapitated head has been attached to a death machine and things are about to go down. Oh wait, never mind. Now we're fighting this giant dog thing and the cat's body is still stuck in it, which I find to be immensely funny. Oh, and an orchestra in the background is playing the Nutcracker March for no reason in particular. Did I mention that this game is a bit odd? And I mean that in the best possible way. Anyways, while we're on the subject of bosses, this game has a ton of them, and they're all weird, wacky, and unique. Just loads of fun in general. The baddest bosses of the bunch have these wind-up keys attached to them. They're probably important. When you beat these guys, a bunch of scrap comes out, and if you collect enough of it, you'll get an extra continue, and you'll need it. This game may start out relatively manageable, but after a certain point, the cartoony gloves come off, and like most games of its era, if you lose all your lives, you gotta start the whole thing over. Part of me wants to tell you to grit your teeth and complete the game the way it was meant to be completed, but Jesus Christ on a bicycle, this game gets crazy later on. The fact that they originally wanted you to beat the game with the amount of lives they give you is borderline absurd. I honestly could never have beaten the second half of this game without save states and even a guide at some points. Certain portions of the game are just flat out unfair, considering how little wiggle room you're given. Who the heck thought this was a good idea for children?
Yeah!
Well, actually, I know who. The Localization team. No kidding. In the American version, you start out with 3 lives. In the Japanese version, you start out with 3 lives and 2 continues. Plus, it's made much easier to get continues from collecting scrap. On top of that, in the American version, certain bosses have had their HP literally doubled, including the final boss. And there are many smaller changes to make the game just that much more ridiculous. They also changed some other stuff, it's just mostly arbitrary. Cat Guy looks different along with some of the other bosses. And the original Japanese version of the game actually has dialogue, giving the story at least a little bit of context. Even though I like some of the reworked sprites, the Japanese version is clearly the way to go with this game. Luckily, the Steam port has workshop support, and you can easily download the translated Japanese version as a mod. Thanks, Internet. Of course, if you're the type of person who really likes to master their games and don't mind spending countless hours replaying the same levels over and over and over again until you've conquered it, then knock yourself out with the Western release. It's really up to personal preference, whatever chuppets your muppets, I guess. Either way, it only costs $3 on Steam, even less when sales roll around. And for an underrated classic like this, it's practically a steal. Plus, I mean, look at these guys. How can you say no?